What is your philosophy on how you govern your health?
Can you give me an example, like what you would do, or like let's just say how you would answer that with your health? Like,
How do you, what ideology, as well as what set of practices do you follow or subscribe to when it comes to making decisions about what you eat and how you take care of your health otherwise?
yeah. So currently, my philosophy in my health is being as healthy as I can with uh just sort of organics, right? I just like to eat a lot of whole foods rather than junk food, eating out. I don't eat out rarely as much. I like to cook at home. When I do cook at home, it's mainly like huge proteins. So I still eat a lot of meats. It's like steaks, any type of steaks, Angus steaks, flat steaks, whatever the case is. Before before we started talking, me and you, I was like on a carnivore diet, and then I knew that that wasn't sustainable, so I started throwing in paleo diet, which is what is it, fruits, nuts, grains, stuff like that. So other than that, I mean, now is just the philosophy is just eating meat, man. Just eating as much meat, as much protein, berries as well, strawberries, and some greens. That's pretty much it. But as far as to what I live to, um, when I buy groceries as well, just buy the best, buy the most healthiest ones, whether they're coming from like Whole
Highest
Foods,
quality.
Jimbo's. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
And now, do you subscribe to a body of knowledge,
I do.
which is what?
Are you referring to?
Like the carnivore diet would be an example.
Yeah. Okay. As of right now, do I?
Yeah, yeah. Or any bodies of knowledge that even inform your hybrid version.
No, man, a lot's changed. I think before I was very subscribed to people's specific diets, but
Yeah.
as I get older, my body starts to like throw me triggers and throw me like,
You're understanding your body.
right, yeah, I start to get a little bit more extensive of like what I can do, what I can't do. Not that I can't, it's a limitation, but I just know that there's a cause and effect. If I take something, if I drink
Yeah,
this, or if I eat this diet, if I, there's
that is
going to be some
correct.
cause and effect for sure.
Yeah, good. Okay, great. So first, like, I've never been dogmatic about food, right? And even when I was a vegan, I was never actually a vegan. The only reason I said that I was a vegan is because it was an easier way to describe the diet that I was actually following, right? But it was the only way I could describe it without getting scientific and shit and talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say, yeah, I'm vegan, basically, which is
Makes
true. I mean,
sense.
I didn't eat meat, but it wasn't because I was a vegan. I arrived at that a non-meat eating diet for a reason. And okay, so let me give you some things that I've learned. So I've studied holistic health, just generally speaking. So let me give you some game that I've basically picked up. Like I said, I've never been dogmatic. And truthfully speaking, if you're a holistic health practitioner, you would never subscribe a diet to an individual. Whenever you take on a patient, you have to do a hair mineral test. You have to do certain blood work. You have, and the blood, see the blood work, so you have to understand something about the body. The body is an interconnected system, and your organ system, you basically have, the way I look at the body is you basically have your, okay, you have your neural highway. So you have neurons in your brain, neurons in your heart, neurons in your gut, right? Like literal neurons. And then you have your central nervous system and your vagus nervous system. The nervous systems refer to the entire superhighway of neurons in the brain, in the heart, and in the gut. So when they say nervous system, they're talking about all three of those things, not the spine. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's the entire electrical communication system because your body is electric. So that's one very important component, the electrical component, the electrical aspect of your body. Then you have the chemical component of your body. So you have the electrical component, then you have the chemical component. The chemical component of your body is your organ systems, your tissues, and then the way chemicals are released and transported around the body by way of your fluid systems, including your blood, plasma, and then your different like white, red, and your different types of blood. So you basically blood, bone marrow, all these things are technically blood, including semen. Semen is also blood. but it's really blood, but we have different words for them for like layman's. But like, so you have your chemical component of your body, which is where your hormones release, I'm sorry, your organs release hormones that interact with each other. They form chemical compounds that create chemical reactions, and they get transported around the body by way of the bloodstream. And they make it to different areas of the body, whether it be a cell, whether it be a region of the body, and the chemicals activate and cause organ systems to function. So, like when your pancreas works, an explosion happens in your pancreas. Or when your liver works, the way that it breaks food down is through a corrosive process. Do you understand what I mean by that? It's chemically reactive. This is important to understand just conceptually. And then basically, your body is held together by your skeletal, tendon, ligament, and muscular system. You see what I'm saying? So the electricity controls, the electricity basically obviously controls how information moves about the body. And then the chemical system in the body is what actually makes the body explosive, so to speak, or chemically reactive and or functionable. You see what I'm saying? All right. Now, I say that for a reason. So it's important to understand holistically for your health to be optimized, you have to optimize for the skeletal muscular system, for the chemical system, and for the electrical system. If there's a deficiency or something compromising any of those three systems, you will suffer in your ability to perform. For example, when you're overtraining for your marathon, your skeletal system suffers. When when you are overstressed, your chemical system will suffer. Um, and the other one's more difficult to explain. The electrical system's more difficult to explain. But there are certain things that that can be going on with you mentally, basically, that can mess with your electrical system. Before I proceed, does that make sense? Okay.
Makes sense. Yep.
It's not important to understand like the names of chemicals and shit like that per se, or like the exact names of nutrients and what they do in the bloodstream. I mean, it is at a certain point, but conceptually, so you understand how to govern yourself, you kind of need to understand how your body actually works as a vessel. You see what I'm saying? As a being. So let me give an example of what I mean by that. When you are stressed, like because of your work, and you're overwhelmed and you're in a state of fight or flight, and you're managing your household and the new demands of your household. So you got demands pressing in upon you from work. You have demands pressing in upon you from your household. This is creating some cocktail of probably cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, up and regulation, like up and down, things like that, right? Stressors in your blood. When these stressors get in your blood, they put you in a very activated state. And if you don't properly downregulate, contract, release, relax, rest, recover, and rejuvenate, then over time, the accumulation of the chemicals builds up in the bloodstream. At the same time, if you don't regulate the environment, creating that reaction in the body, that accumulates. And then, often when you enter a distressed state, your body gets rid of the stress through certain activities. Passive engagement, such as walking, um, doing basic household chores, meditation, stuff like that. Going to the spa, going to get a manicure, you know, like relaxing activities. Not sleep, actually. Sleep, this doesn't happen in sleep. A lot of people have that confused. In sleep, the body does something very differently with the cells. But anyway, in the brain, sleep is a very active activity, as a matter of fact. But anyway, so here's what happens with most people, and I think this is what's going on with you. With most men, especially in our society, you get into a stage of expansion and you don't know how to properly contract. So the greater you expand outward, the more the more activated you become due to your environment or due to what's inside of your body and the different active activities that you engage in, whether that be your physical training, what you do at work, what you do in the household, what you do inside your own mind, what you do with your self-development, etc. These are all active things. The day exists. You have a circadian rhythm that's governed by the day, and there's a cycle of day and night that governs the earth. Your body is supposed to move through an expansive contractive cycle throughout a day, just like what the earth does. And then it also happens seasonally and annually. There are times of the year when you should be more contracted and times of the year when you're supposed to be more expansive, summer and winter, for example. There's a time of the day when you should be more contracted, a time of the day when it's more optimal to be expansive. This is common sense. Now, the thing is, you probably don't contract well or in an intentional, sophisticated way. That's the problem. So then what happens is your environment, the chemicals in your body, and then also your electrical system is very activated over time. And then you get into this state where you become depleted. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you don't engage in the contractive, relaxing, or restorative activities that break down cortisol, adrenaline, that replenish dopamine, that replenish things like serotonin and many other things that I could describe. When you don't do those things, then your body starts looking for either coping mechanisms for functioning or replacements. Okay? Now, I'll give you an example of this. I don't want to get like lost in just making everything technical. I want to stay at a conceptual level because that's all that matters. But when you're in this depleted state, it can become attractive to drink alcohol because the release that you can get from drinking alcohol you can be so depleted that the alcohol, while it is poisonous and your body knows that it's poisonous, can actually provide you with more temporary relief that would be of greater benefit to you than suffering in the state of depletion would be for that period of time while you're awake. That's why alcohol can be like an urge that your body like goes for. Same thing would be true for coffee. If you have not enough dopamine and other certain things naturally in your chemical system, your body knows that coffee can be a replacement for this, and then it can create urges to like reach for it. Now, obviously, there's long term. The thing is, the body is not designed to have long term coping mechanisms. You see what I'm saying? The body expects you to eventually enter a state of contraction. So there's nothing wrong with using like coffee or even alcohol, or we'll use those as examples, but plenty of things. There's nothing wrong with using certain things as temporary coping strategies. They wouldn't have a real effect. But the problem is we end up using these things for like years in some cases. You see what I'm saying? Which is very much so what happened to me. And all right, so boom. Okay. Now, another thing is it's not just in the more obvious things, it's in less obvious things, like your desire to eat an excessive amount of meat, as a matter of fact. Here's the interesting thing. When you're in a stressed state, when you've been very expansive, in other words, and remember, you can become expansive as a response to a stressful environment, or because perhaps you just have a lot of energy and it's the right time for you to be expansive. You understand? You can be in a forced expansion or in a natural expansion, but it affects the body almost the same way. Now, anyway, when you've been in an expansive state a long time, you deplete a lot of resources, protein, amino acids, minerals, vitamins. We already talked about the different chemicals, right? But you're generally depleted. And then again, your amino acids and your proteins that form in your body, a lot of that happens during your sleep or during your more past during your recovery. Like everybody knows that. So what happens with a lot of guys is they think that they can eat their way out of that. Like when you're not contracting enough for your body to make use of the nutrients that it's fed, they think they can eat their way out of it. But that's not what happens. Your body will just digest it and shit it out because it's not. It takes a certain amount of energy for your body to break down protein and then reform it into amino acid complexes and make protein in the body. But if you're constantly in an expanded state, your body doesn't have the time to literally do that. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, what happens too, just to give you an example real quick, I just want to give you an example. I'm a firm believer, I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm a firm believer in natural law. Natural law. As humans, we often think, we we we're very human centric, very egocentric. We think the world was created around us. We don't understand that we were a part of the earth or the world or the universe, whatever God created. We were a part of the creation, an aspect of the creation. And there's laws that govern the what was created. There's laws that govern the world, and those laws that govern the world govern us. So no one is egocentric enough to think that they can force agriculture to not abide by the four seasons, but they try and do that with their body. Does that make sense? And no one, like everyone knows that the sun is going to set and rise, and there's nothing that you can do about that. But they don't understand the same necessity of expansion and contraction in their body. Does that make sense? So you have to understand that when you are out of accord with natural law, you are in violation of the law put in place by the creator, and you were going to suffer. You see what I'm saying? That's the concept. So it's understanding and surrendering to the fact that there's a governance, there are laws that you have to submit to that will actually aid you in being more to grow, to heal, to go through your own cycles of expansion and contraction to actually be more powerful and to have better longevity. Now, so for example, just one more example, and then we'll start talking about specifics. But for example, if you accept that your body is governed by cycles, that your body goes through cycles, if you can accept that, and that your body goes through almost seasons just like the earth does, then you have to understand what I'm about to follow, the following that I'm about to say. So in the spring and summer, your body is more expansive. The fuel source that your body would need would therefore likely differ from what your body would need during the fall and winter when it's in a more contracted state where it's attempting to. So this is a generally accepted truth, and it sounds almost counterintuitive. But during the spring and summer, you're supposed to eat more water and nutrient rich, but lighter foods. Like you can literally just think about what grows during the summertime. Fruits, spring vegetables, and these, you know what I mean? Like tropical shit. You know what I'm saying? Because your body in a very active state. You know when you eat a lot of dense food and it makes you very sleepy because of the energy consumed, right? But when you eat like these foods that are like, if you eat like a salad with a bunch of fruits and things that are highly digestible, the same thing doesn't happen. In the winter, so at a time when you're like in the winter when you're less expansive, you're sleeping more basically, or you should be sleeping more rather. And the day is not even as long. There's less sunlight hours. So it would make more sense from an annual perspective to eat denser foods like your meats, your heavy grains to repair tissues and cartilage and ligaments and things like that in the body. And for more rest to happen, for more cellular regeneration to occur, which takes a lot of time and energy. And the food is needed for that, the dense food actually. But during those time, that season of the year, sleeping and eating in accordance with contraction, and then during the season of the year where you're more expansive, eating in accordance with what allows you to be light and active and on the go, and to eat readily food sources that convert into readily available energy without taking hours and hours and hours. And meat doesn't even produce a lot of energy in the first place. Just as an example. But so I wanted to lay that out. So then when you look at like your lifestyle, when you look at your lifestyle as a whole, annually, seasonally, and then the cycle of your day. So I would look at the annual, and then I would look at the seasons of the year, the quarters, and then I would look at the week and then the day and understand what kind of expansion contraction it is that I'm actually doing. Again, from those different scopes of perspective. And then I would see where it's out of accord or where it's likely not one something is out of balance. And then that's the first place I'd start. The second place I'd start is understanding from when it comes to like food and everything like that. Your body needs fats, proteins, aminos, lipids, enzymes, acids, vitamins, minerals. You dig what I'm saying? Your body needs all these things, and the only way you can get most of it is through consumption. You get some vitamins organically from the sunlight. Actually, you get a full spectrum of vitamins from the sunlight if you're outside enough, but that's not the point. Um, you have to eat a full range of foods. So in other words, I don't believe in veganism and I don't believe in carnivorism. I just think we're herbivores. And I don't think that there's a totally complete food source in just one of those two. And then so I would really pay attention to like, again, the per annum, per quarter, weekly, and then daily cycles that I put myself through for balance. And then I would look at the full range of what I'm consuming to understand what my body is made up of, which you could find out from a hair mineral and then also a blood test. And then you can also figure out what's going on chemically in your body from blood work. Because when certain when your body enters certain states for prolonged periods of time, and then when it can't properly break down certain chemicals, they build up in excess in the bloodstream so that they can do a blood lab and see what's going on. And now this gets more complicated, right? But you can get cirrhosis of the liver from drinking alcohol. You can also just get it from being mentally stressed, from the cortisol that it creates that passes through the liver. So you can also see by examining blood work what type of stress a person is in, if that makes sense. And then you can you remember this, you can cater to your health. Because when I think about health, I think about your physical performance, your mental health, your nutrition, and then your general expansion contraction. And contraction includes sleep. Um, that's a whole system. And like for example, if you had cirrhosis, we could address that through what you drink, eat, through your lifestyle. We could address it mentally. There's multiple ways to address the same problem because of the body, because that's how things are affected. Things very rarely occur in isolation, if that makes sense. So, okay, I wanted to drop that as a framework, right? And to give you that to think about when you think about your health. But I just the point that I want to get across is this. If you are suffering, and what I would describe what you were experiencing whenever work was overwhelming and everything, that's suffering. You know what I mean? Or even when you're training really hard for the marathon and you're in pain, and there's pain in your body, that's suffering. So that's a health challenge, right? the what I try to get people to realize is that you've got to address it holistically. That's basically why I said all that. But anyway, what can we talk about specifically?
No, you said a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to take in there, Cam.
I know.
I only have 10 minutes. I do have a hard stop at 3. I have another call, but
Okay.
no, it makes sense. That was a lot to unpack. More than anything, I wasn't like really like looking to ask questions. I was kind of like consuming what you just mentioned. Um,
Let me
I,
ask you
I
some questions.
yeah,
All right. So, assuming that you don't have any hangups with anything that I said, because like even if you belong to like whatever doctrine you kind of like gravitate towards, it's cool. Like even if it's carnivore, that's cool. But I think that the truth about holistic health, there's room for all of that. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, like Eskimos eat more mostly a carnivore diet, and they're very healthy. Assuming they're very healthy people. Anyway, okay. Question for you: where are you struggling most in your health? Mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually, or spiritually?
There's categories for health, or I'm a little confused on that question.
Where would you say that you're struggling most on your health? And yeah, what I just broke down would be the categories: mental, emotional, physical, sexual, spiritual. Because that's the holistic makeup of you, right? What area would you say that your whatever challenges that you are experiencing are rooted in?
I'd say right now, right now, I'd say physical.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the marathon has like taken a big toll, bro. That's why
Yeah,
I think right after this one, I'm done running long distance or just done in general. I think it's taking a lot of toll into my inner self, and it's a commitment I've already made. I've already done 2 before, but I've never trained
that's hard.
um as hard as this one,
Yeah.
and it's a lot,
Did you
man.
do it because you wanted to? So I'm just being more straightforward because of time. Did you do it because you wanted to prove something to yourself?
I'd say the first one, yeah, for sure. The first 2 actually.
Yeah. What about this one?
This one was off the whim. I think I overshot myself on this one. I think this one's more like on a time based because the last 2 that I've done, I've bogged out. If bogged out is in like my body gave out more than my mind.
Oh,
So my
oh,
body,
okay. Like you actually weren't like the conditioning.
yeah, no, my body bogged out at like mile 19, 20. Um, and it was the most like degrading thing I've ever gone through because your mind's
Mm,
fine, but your body's not. And I was like so surprised because I thought I was
you're
lethal, bro.
undertrained. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was lethal. I thought I can finish it without anything. And I did it twice, and it was just embarrassing because I don't know, you know me. It was just a little bit of a standard thing that I have, and this next one here, I've been training a lot more intensely. I've been clocking about like 30, 40 miles a week at most. But it's just taking a big toll, man. I think that
Yeah.
this one's
Okay.
gonna be
All right.
done.
Can I say something? Can I say something? All right. I might be off base. This is kind of a speculation, but I'm gonna say it because I've been thinking it about you. Okay? But don't take it the wrong way if it's off base.
All right.
Listen, Alex, when we first started talking, obviously you're introducing your family, you know, your son into the world, governing your household. You had some self-actualization you wanted to achieve for yourself. You wanted to take your business to a certain scale, right? And I'm assuming that a lot of that will obviously, you still want to do your business thing, right? That's,
Correct. Yep.
okay, okay. All right, cool. So that's all still true. So um, listen, when you look at like your magnum opus, when you look at your magnum opus, the biggest things that are going to make up your personal life are basically going to be your career, whether that be corporate or business, your family, and in no particular order, by the way, your career, your family, perhaps other relationships, maybe a little bit less, and then definitely your self-development, your relationship with yourself, your general self-development as a man, right? You have limited energy. And look, I think when you look at your magnum opus and you have your trajectory from where you're at to that, you you, you need to deploy your resources, your time, your energy, whether that be mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, into your all you have is your daily execution. All you have is your daily execution. And then you map that day out so that what I'm doing today is developing across each aspect of what I want my reality to become, right? But you only have the day. And the marathon feels like a lot of training that's not directly developing your household, your career, the things that are really important to your legacy. That was my only thing with it. And the thing is, I think you would literally be happier and more fulfilled, and you would manifest your goals faster if you focused most specifically on really your household and your career, and then your physical training as a part of your self-development, as a part of your self-development. You know what I'm saying? So training physically, I don't know, so that your aesthetic on camera is great, so that you show up ready to work better, you know, so that you're more attractive to your wife or you stay attractive to your wife rather. Um, but not like to the point where it overshadows the goals. You see what I'm saying? And then, yeah, man, like it can be super easy. Like, what's your real North Star? Is your real North Star basically what it is that you provide for your family and how you lead your family and what y'all create? You know what I mean? By way of your legacy and your lineage, keep that the North Star. Don't let
That's
things become more important. And whatever's getting the most of your energy is the most important thing. You might care more about your son, but if your son is not getting the majority of your energy because it's going somewhere else, well, then in reality, what's the most important thing? You see what I'm saying? This is something I discovered, you know, from self-reflection myself. But that's what I think, man.
yeah, I think you're spot on. Yeah. You said it a lot better than what I thought about, but yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and
that's
everything you're
why,
doing is noble. Like, everything you're doing is noble. I think
right.
you're stressing yourself out to a certain degree. I think you need more contraction, time for it's going to be in the well, it's in the implementation manual, but especially the new one you get. But you just need more contraction based activities in your daily operating system and your weekly operating system. And it will make you stronger, bro. I bet you have physical gains on the table from not resting and recovering enough.
I can already feel it.
Yeah. But everything like your work ethic is so incredible that when you bring the balance back in, I think you're going to be surprised at the gains that you get quickly. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Do you
I know
mind
we're
if
out of time.
if we pick up this
Yeah.
conversation? I don't know if you have a Wednesday or maybe even next week.
Listen, bro, whatever you want to do, I'm more flexible than you, I believe, right now. So you just let me know what works for you, and I'll make my schedule work for you. What I'd be super interested in is anything that comes to your mind that you want to discuss, and I'd really love to get into your actual what you want your day and your week operating system to be like, so I can help you engineer that.
I think Wednesday call would be better. Yeah, because I think we're consumed. I'll try to do it right after. I'll try to do it after all my calls, because then like I'm
Yeah.
kind of like on back to back. So
So
we'll
this
do that
Wednesday,
this Wednesday. Yes, I'll shoot you some times of what I have, and let's see if that works out for your schedule as well.
just let me know what you want to do, bro.
Perfect. Sounds good, man.
Yep,
Appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much.
no doubt. All
All
right,
right, bro.
champ.
All right,
Talk
talk to you
soon.
later.
Enjoy your day.